Wait for it. Almost there. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blade podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the fracking place. The podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves. So we're going to start with the one, the only Mr. Darren Drader.
All right, I'm Darren Drader. If you happen to be an RPG gamer, you might recognize my name from well over 100 products I've worked on. I've lost count at this point. And I've worked with WotC, Paizo, Mongoose, most of the major ones, mostly on D20 based games. But I've hit a wide variety of genres. I'm also an occasional author. And you can also find me streaming the Fallout RPG on Cybernation Uncensored on twice a month on Saturday nights. So that's me in a nutshell. Go ahead and move on.
So might you say then that you're genre fluid?
That's right.
Oh, wow.
All right.
It's going to be that kind of show.
I mean, I'm hyped up on my third cup of caffeine. I have been up since 4 a.m. doing this whole writing thing because I'm going to finish book 2 this month by hook or by crook. So it's going to be that kind of show, people.
By crook. Love it.
That's right. That's right. All right. Next, we've got the lovely Miss Jenna S. Brown, who sometimes goes by Jenna Ray, sometimes goes by names we can't talk about. I have speculations that maybe she is the one, the only Dr. Chuck Tingle, but she will not confirm or deny that. But can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, there are certain things that we don't talk about on the podcast. You know that. Yeah, I'm Jenna S. Brown. I'm Jenna S. Brown, also Jenna Ray. Under Jenna Ray, you can find science fiction, fantasy, and urban fantasy, all things speculative with a little bit of smoochies. Jenna S. Brown writes about the publication business, and all of them like to watch shows, including Battlestar. So I'm very excited.
Very excited. Very, very excited, you might say.
Very, very.
Right. Oh, that is not me talking, people. I promise. Last, we have the Mr. Matthew W. Quinn, who can introduce himself to our listeners and viewers.
Yep. Atlanta author Matthew W. Quinn. I've been on this show twice before. I think it was episodes 100 and episode 247. And here's a chance for me to talk about something other than my projects.
All right. And so those were interesting interviews. You should go check them out. And if you are our new listeners over on the BitChutes, you cannot hear his episode because it is too big for us to upload, and they won't mirror from YouTube that far back. But it's definitely worth checking out. And we are working on getting all of our stuff over. As the podcast gets big enough, they will cut us more slack on how many of our episodes we can port over. But until then, we're going to tell you, dear listener, how I first found this motley collection of creative types. So picture it. It's about a decade ago. We were in Viper pilot training, but we failed out. And unfortunately, Starbucks didn't like us enough. We weren't cute enough, I guess, to pass us. We weren't Zach Adama. So, we ended up failing out. And because we couldn't be Viper pilots, we decided to write books and stuff. True story.
But which of us are secretly Cylons? That's the question.
Ooh. I'm just saying.
If we're going according to the reboot, all but one of us are secretly Cylons.
That's true.
Do you guys follow Nerd Cookies, the YouTube website?
I don't.
They do all kinds of lore breakdowns, and that's the new conspiracy they just launched this morning, was that the Starbuck was the secret Cylon.
See, I have a different take on Starbuck. And I know that they've talked to various people who are involved in the show, and they're like, oh no, she was an angel. Well, I think she was the representation in the reboot of the Ship of Lights that appeared in the original. They kind of made her key to finding Earth, which I think was appropriate. But I think that she was probably the one character who was absolutely not a Cylon on the show.
Okay. Anyone else care to weigh in on that conspiracy theory? Got ideas?
It tracks.
If she is an angel, she would be the Ship of Lights analog. Isn't that what the Ship of Lights were?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically. I mean, they were an advanced alien race capable of bringing you back from the dead. but they probably visited various worlds and passed themselves off as angels. So, it all works.
Because Count Ibley was obviously the devil. I mean, they had to have him
Right.
practically yelling at the Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
So this is the Blasters and Blades, and we would be nothing if not our religion question. So Darren, you have not answered these yet. Are you ready for this, sir? There are wrong answers.
Well, no, because I'm not aware. No, go ahead.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Star Trek.
Acceptable. All right. What was it about Star Trek that speaks to you?
Okay. What speaks to me about Star Trek is that it's not, well, first of all, it's a developed world, unlike Firefly, which only got like a season and a movie. So I would argue Firefly is not developed enough to be in the running. Star Wars, I know I just pissed some people off there, but anyway, Star Wars, the entire thing, doesn't matter how big they build their universe, the whole thing comes down to the premise of good versus evil, which is very binary, and it plays itself out very quickly, which is probably the reason most Star Wars fans don't really like anything they've done since Return of the Jedi. So for that reason, I feel that Star Trek simply has more to offer.
Okay. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, sir, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or The Chronicles of Narnia?
None of the above.
Sir.
Oh.
I can tell you why in each case. Do you want to hear my diatribe?
Sure. We got time. We got nothing but time, sir.
Okay. Game of Thrones, frankly, is just it's too raw, it's too dark, and for me, that's not what I enjoy in fantasy. And I'll leave it at that. I mean, we could talk about what's his face getting his member cut off, and that was just par for the course. But the whole show is kind of like that. It's like one shitty thing happens after another. One character dies after another. It's dark. It's dreary. It's a slog. I didn't enjoy it. Wheel of Time. I haven't watched the miniseries. I've watched maybe the first 3 episodes, but I read the first 3 books, and I did not find Robert Jordan to be that great of an author. His prose are very awkward, and that was his style. It was just being awkward. And after a while, it grated on my nerves to the point where I couldn't follow it anymore. So I am interested in getting into the show and watching it to see if I enjoy that more. But I haven't done it yet. As for Narnia, I just never really got into it. I'm more of Lord of the Rings guy.
Lord of the Rings used to be part of the whole religion question, but since everybody said Lord of the Rings, they changed it.
Okay. How about this? I'm more of a Forgotten Realms guy.
Oh, there you go. Forgotten Realms is good.
Because we are not knuckle-dragging troglodytes, we have one more question for you, sir. Are you ready for this one?
Sure.
Nothing but the hard-hitting questions from us. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Coffee, definitely not tea. And I take it with cream, caramel, and 4 sugars.
Caramel, you say? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to try that because that actually sounds good.
Mm-hmm. And I'll take it hot and I'll take it iced, either way. Just depends on the season.
All right. And Matthew, since you came on the show last time, there was no coffee or tea question. So you get to answer that, sir. Are you ready? Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
I don't drink either of them.
What? Are they going to take away your writing card? You're probably not in SIFO anymore, are you? They just kicked you out. I heard the letter in the mail.
Kick me out of an organization I'm not in. That'd be hilarious.
Stranger things have happened, sir.
4 seasons worth.
Supposed to have been 5, but then they had to wrap it up badly.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you drink when you're writing?
I'm trying to cut caffeine, so Diet Coke in the mornings. Well, my uncle says you drink a lot of water, it functions just the same.
Why would we want to do something like that?
Because water's free.
I don't know where you live, but not here.
Nope. Cheaper than soda.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
And soda
like
is
my
better than
fizz.
coffee because you just pour it and drink it. You don't have to make it.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to show off. Nick, you have an art question to pass to prove your art credentials. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready for an art question. Sure.
Whose art is that?
Looks like Franzetta's.
Damn, I thought I was going to stump you. It is.
Dude, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Well
Yeah.
done.
That is not the only Frazetta Battlestar Galactica art with bodacious behinds. There's also one they did for the Count Ibley episode.
Okay.
You're testing my pedigree, bro.
I just wanted to see if you got it because I figured you mentioned all the
That's
classics.
Frazetta.
This is fan made, but
His daughter shared some of his Battlestar Galactica artwork about 2 weeks ago.
really,
So, yeah.
okay. So we're diving in clearly by the intro conversation. We are here to talk about Battlestar Galactica. So let's get nerdy. The first question is, what first drew you to the series? And it doesn't matter where you found the universe of Battlestar Galactica, but what first drew you there?
I remember watching reruns the original series when I was a little kid. This would have been the mid '90s.
So clearly, I'm a little older than you because I was about 5 years old. I was fresh off of Star Wars from the theater, and Battlestar Galactica comes on the air, the original series, and for me, that was almost as big of a deal as Star Wars. And I definitely, at least with the original series, I watched every single episode. When 1980 came around, I watched the first episode and said, "This is terrible." I never watched another one after that. And that was like at about 7 years old that I was at that time. You're not really supposed to have really defined sense of taste at 7 years old, but I think it was pretty much universally decided that 1980 was terrible.
Oh yeah, 1980 shouldn't. We pretend that didn't happen, and
Exactly.
and I'm with you. I watched it on Saturday afternoons as a kid in first run, so that makes us of a generation. But yeah, started there, and then hit the reboot after it'd been out for a while. Mostly because I just missed it, and I knew it was a thing, but didn't take the time to sit down and watch it, and so caught that a couple years after it finished airing.
Now, see, for me with the reboot, I knew it was coming. I was like counting down the days to the pilot, and then I watched the pilot and I was like, okay, this is different, but I can accept it, and it's cool, and I'm excited, and I'm down with it. And I remember there was just big fan wars about it because there's a lot of people that this should not exist. Starbuck can't be a woman. What is this? It's just all these different things. Like Cylons aren't the same. They're CGI. But I was like, this shows a lot of promise. I think it could be very cool. And it just, despite the noise, this is one of those things where sci-fi, I don't think a lot of people even remember this anymore. It took sci-fi months to greenlight the series. It got to the point where the actors' contracts, I believe they either had ran out or they were about to run out. And they literally saved the actual series at the last minute before it was just flat out not going to happen. And I'm glad they did, because I was one of those people who's just like front and center on the message boards. This has to go forward with, we need this. So, and by the end of the 4 years, I was slightly less enthusiastic about it, but still glad they tried it.
Well, the Viper helmets were a huge improvement. They all didn't look like pharaohs.
I always liked that though.
I think
I thought that was one of the worst helmet designs in sci-fi. The original series. I'm like, they look like space pharaohs. What the hell?
That was the point.
The Van Daniken thing.
It was a dumb point, in my opinion. Don't come at me.
But the thing is, the thing is, they're trying to establish that the Egyptians and the Mayans and the Toltecs and all this stuff draw their origins. We all draw from the same origins, which is why you would see a lot of these themes show up. Why did the council wear togas? Why did they have the helmets that look like pharaohs? It was to kind of do this multicultural thing that tied into, the ancient world and how it all took its inspiration from a common ancestor. And I don't know, for me, it worked, even though you kind of look at it and, on the surface, I can see why you might see it. You might think it's a little cheesy, but I don't.
So Jenna, you didn't fully answer, and Jenna can answer too, or your other alters. But what is it originally that drew you to Battlestar Galactica?
So it was the only science fiction I could find on television during the time that I was allowed to be awake, because a lot of the other stuff that was showed at night, and I was a kid, and so this was on during Saturday afternoons and became a total kids of the 80s, you watch cartoons in the morning, you go run around outside, get your knees scuffed up, do all the things you're supposed to do, pop back in, get a sandwich and a drink, watch Battlestar Galactica, and then go back outside and play. And these were very typical Saturdays. And so it was this really fun thing where they had a lot going on. There were fights happening. There was what for the time was very, very amazing CGI, because, it was the late 70s and early 80s, and we didn't know what we were missing yet. Mm-hmm. So it was fun to watch. I have to say, I also liked that they had women that were doing cool things, because that was a big deal to me as a girl, to go, look, there's female pilots and there's females doing other things. And it was nice to see that in my science fiction, because none of them were damsels. They were out there with the guys doing the thing. And that was really empowering and so much fun to watch, because we were just all, we were all very equal and very much all out there to help move the Battlestar forward. And so as a girl, that was really great. Go ahead, Nick.
I said it was some very progressive thinking at the time, like total equality. It's like, hey, congratulations, you're female, you're in the war now. You know,
1,000 years of war will do that.
Yeah, it'll do it. It's like, we need all hands on deck. We're all after the mysterious 13th colony, Earth. Everything else has been destroyed, so everyone's got to chip in, because we can't, just rest on typical gender roles, I guess, at the time.
Yeah.
So did this come before, contemporary, or after Star Trek? Because it was, Star Trek, because they had Uhuru in the original series.
I'm guessing about 10 years afterward.
After.
Yeah, it was after.
Okay, so they were following in some footsteps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
70, okay. Let me double check, because the last time I said one of these off the top of my head, I got it wrong, and then Stabby corrected me. 70, I have my thing open here.
78, right?
Aired on the ABC network from September 17th, 1978 to April 29th, 1979 for the original one. So and then there was Galactica 1980, which we don't talk about. So, yeah. So
you don't dig Adama's beard?
No, not the beard. The
Adama beard?
Yeah, the Adama beard was bad.
Oh yeah.
Or what about Dr.
They're really going for the Space Moses thing at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, since you're speaking, Matthew, what was it that drew you in originally to wherever you were when you found Battlestar Galactica?
Well, I didn't. My folks didn't have most of the cable except for the Sci-Fi Channel and Cartoon Network, and it was a space show, and I was a little kid, so I thought that was cool. And then when I was in college, they were making the new version of it. Like, oh, let's see what they do with it.
Okay, and Stabby. Normally, I forget to involve you and Nick, but I'm not doing that today. So, how did you find Battlestar Galactica?
You told me to watch it.
Someone listen to me? Write this in your calendar, Nick. This might not ever happen again.
Oh, I'm recording it.
I'm on episode 5 of the 2004 series. So you guys are talking, and I'm over here like,
oh, so we're sitting here spoiling the hell out of it is what we're doing.
It's okay.
Oh,
she likes it.
Yeah.
I started in 2004. I didn't know if it was a reboot or if it was a continuation, and I was super confused. I'm like, there's like no backstory here. What is happening? And so I'm just kind of watching it and going with the flow and hoping for like flashbacks.
Well, they did. Modern film likes to do too much of the in media res and just drop you in the middle of the story and leave you to figure it out, which I don't like. There's room for that in a short story, But if you want to build a franchise, you've got to give them something. I also think they banked heavily on the nostalgia factor, so everyone had a base of info they assumed, which works until you want new people to watch it because you need to grow your fan base. But yeah, it's good. I liked it. I watched the original one first myself, and I was just had a tablet with me. They finally was able to get Wi-Fi at the VA hospital, and I had time. Lots of time sitting there waiting for appointments. That hurry up and wait at the VA. See, that's the cruelest trick the Army ever played on me. They told me I was done with that when I left the service, and then they sent me to the VA.
Surprise, surprise!
Like, we got you, motherfucker.
So where I'm at right now is Starbuck is training the new hires, and she calls one of them Hot Dog, which I think is funny because I can never come up with funny nicknames, and then I just call somebody a food. So that worked for me. But then now she's stranded on a planet because, yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. So you guys are all talking, and I'm just like, la, 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 la,
That episode has one of the best lines in it I can remember from the show, although I don't want to spoil it for you.
I am not your hot dog.
You can spoil it for Stabby. She's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm dyslexic. I won't remember anything you guys say, and I'll just go right back to the show.
If it was you down there, we'd never leave.
I'm watching it. I'm trying to get into it. Like I said, I feel really lost. I don't understand why the doctor is seeing this chick that nobody else is seeing. Like, it makes no sense to me at all. But I'm working with it. But that's why I was a couple minutes late, because he's like 25 minutes, Stabby, and I'm like, okay, I'm almost done with this episode. I'm trying to have something to say during this show.
I think you would actually benefit from going back and watching the original and seeing what roles these characters had in the original and how they changed it for the reboot. Dr. Baltar being especially what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
he wasn't the conflicted, maybe I'm a traitor guy that he was in the reboot. No, he was a mustache twirling villain who sold out the human race intentionally in the original. And I think that there was an awareness of that in the reboot that they expected that the audience would bring to it. And they expected that would kind of color your opinion of him. So then you get the new people who come into it and they're like, okay, this is weird.
Yeah, when I say they dropped you right in the middle, if you start in 2004 and I say they dropped you right in the middle, I'm like, why does this chick think she's planting bombs everywhere? Why does this guy see this lady? Why is she kissing on him in front of everybody? Like, what is going on?
You didn't watch the You didn't watch the miniseries?
No, I was told. I forgot that we even had this podcast until last night, right before bed, when he dropped the, "Hey, everybody! By the way, we're doing this tomorrow." I'm like, "Oh man, I guess I better find these somewhere." So
it was mentioned that there was the miniseries in 2003, and then the show comes out a year later.
Yeah. The miniseries is really the
that's really the pilot
series.
I think the hardest part is you have to pay for it everywhere. I checked every streaming service, and it's season 1 for $40, and I'm like,
buy the DVDs for that price, because you'll always own it.
Yeah, I unloaded some of the later season DVDs at half price books, and I only gave them $2 for them.
I found a website that lets me watch them for free. I just have to keep clicking the little X in the corner when things pop up.
So
I thought we don't talk about those.
They don't exist.
Family friendly.
They don't exist, and we never use them.
Right. She's not a swashbuckler at all.
Exactly.
I will say that if you're going to buy, this is a PSA to the audience, don't do what I did. If you were going to buy the box set of the original series, make sure they give you the episodic breakdown so you can watch them one episode at a time. Because if you're not careful, there's a third-party vendor that will sell you cheaper. It's cheaper for a reason. It literally is just the entirety of the series, one episode after another with no episode breaks. It's literally just 4-hour block, next DVD, 4-hour block, and good luck trying to remember where you paused it if you can't just sit for like 3 weeks straight and watch the videos.
See, I got the Cylon Head DVDs from that they released in like the late 90s, I think. Yeah, this is not that. It's got the breakdown.
I should have watched them sooner while I was still in the return it to Amazon window, because I could have sent them back and got the right ones. But no, did I do that? JR did not do that. No, he did not. So don't be me. Check what you buy first, people. All right, and Nick, I didn't forget about you. So
Yes,
how
you
did
did.
you discover? Shush! How did you discover Battlestar Galactica?
I was a kid in the early '80s, and I think it was on syndication by that time. And I watched a couple episodes. Like, as far as fandoms go, I can only follow so many before I start running out of hard drive space. That's one of the ones I kind of slept on. So it's been in my queue list of things to watch. That and Babylon 5 and Farscape and like 9 other shows.
The list goes on and on.
Oh, it is. I'm never going to catch up. I'm going to will myself to live to 100. I'm going to be like, on the last episode of the final show that I've supposed to been watching, I did it. and then I'm going to be out.
Well, Farscape and B5 are both worth it. Just saying.
Okay.
I know we're not talking about them, but go for it. You won't be sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have a list. I'm like, man, these are shows that people, like my other nerd friends, talk about. And I'm like, yeah, those are cool. I can't join the conversation. So I'll definitely get to them. But I remember as a kid, liking the pilots. I liked space stuff, because I had recently discovered Star Wars, and I liked space battles, and I liked how they used, I didn't know that at the time, but like you can't just fly a Viper through space like an X-Wing. There's little, rockets and stuff going on, using actual physics in space. So I thought that was cool. And then when the remake was coming out, I'm like, man, I didn't even watch the original. I don't know. I'm going to be so lost. But, it was on syndication, and you get bored on a Saturday. There's nothing else on TV, and I don't feel like going outside because sunlight hurts you. And it's expensive out there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? She's hot. I'm going to watch this. Oh, and Trisha Helfer. I bought that Playboy also.
Don't forget Grace Park.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there was not an ugly female on that show. I even thought the president was hot.
I mean, she did rock
those. Ooh, she's powerful. She's political.
Yeah.
So we got a cougar hunter here. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
2004. Yeah, I was like 25. I'm like,
if you want to go back in time before that, go watch Dance with Wolves, because she's in that, and it's
that's
earlier.
where I recognize her from too. I was like,
yeah,
I know that chick from Dances with Wolves. She was the white girl native.
Stands with a fist.
That was her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit,
yeah, same
you just blew
actress.
my mind. I mean, Frack, you just blew my mind.
Oh, frack me. But anyway, yeah. So, I discovered it twice. I didn't watch all of it. I know. Send the hate mail to Stabby, because I'll never see it. And yeah, I'm actually looking forward to getting to the series now that she's doing it, and has OCD with that stuff. So it'll be on for the next however long it takes us to finish the series, and the spinoff, and the OG, and the miniseries.
Speaking of spinoffs, has anybody seen New Caprica, or am I the only one that was disappointed we only got one season?
No, I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it. Blame me for only getting one season.
Jana, save me. Tell me you liked it.
I didn't see it. I'm with Nick, where there were way too many things to watch, and so I saw that it was a thing to watch and did not watch it.
I actually found New Caprica first, and I was watching it. I'm like, dude, I'm digging this sci-fi mafia thing going on, like with the crime families. And then, because I liked The Godfather as a kid, I'm like, this is like The Godfather in space. And I happened to be my stepdad was over, and he goes, that's from a different series. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, that's Battlestar Galactica. I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, nice.
What the frack?
This Battlestar Galactica stuff. And then I found the 2000 with Starbuck, and then he was like, yeah, no, you got to go watch the original, which is why I rushed out to buy it. I was so excited that I didn't check, and I bought the 4-hour
one,
basically. Yeah, I really liked New Caprica. I thought the acting was well, the family honor. They dove into like the unique family dynamics that happen when you've got plural marriages of all varieties,
Hell
which I
yeah.
thought was pretty cool. So obviously Stabby hasn't watched it. What about you, Nick? Have you seen it?
New Caprica, I watched a couple episodes on it. Once again, I felt lost. I was like, I like it. It's sci-fi, so I should enjoy this.
Why am I
But
feel
I
like
don't know what the frack is going on.
I feel like it's like Stargate Universe. Very few people liked it, but I'm one of the weirdos who like that too. It's the same thing.
I think for me, what it was is that, we'd just gone through this 4-year series. It was over. The story is played out. Oh, we're going to reboot. Or no, we're not going to reboot. We're going to do a prequel now. And, this is in the same era where the Star Wars prequels have been out and most people are kind of disappointed in those. And I was like, it's not really in space, and it doesn't, it's they might be getting into the origin of the Cylons, but it's not really the meat of what Battlestar Galactica was all about. And for me, I was just like, I've got other things to do with my time. So that's why I didn't watch it.
Here's what
I think that's a good
on
point.
the reboot. It was the West Wing with space battles, and I thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to deal with the military side of the political spectrum, the actual political side, and then you dealt with the religion stuff too. So it had a lot going on from the few episodes that I saw, and this is what I picked up from it, was those three things. I'm like, I really want to sit down and watch this, but like I got other shows that I'm watching at the time and things like that. So I'm like, it fell way down to the priority list. But now that I think I'm caught up on every other damn show I've had to watch, I can finally dig into this. So I'm actually pretty excited about it.
Okay. I'm definitely thinking about my next royalty check, spending it to buy all the BSG things. But people keep telling me I've got to do things like pay mortgages and rent and all that adult stuff. But I just want the Viper helmet. All right. I want both versions side by side on my mantle.
Something to be said for that.
That's not an unreasonable request, frankly.
And the only unfortunate problem with the reboot, at least the old style, like the original uniforms, they look like they might be a little bit forgiving for the maternity version I would need. So, until I lose the weight, I definitely can't do the form-fitting reboots because that leather just doesn't look like it's going to breathe.
JR, I can sew, man. I'll let out the parts that you need let out.
So while everyone else is going to go run their eyes under bleach for that mental image, I'm going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the woman this time.
A single blip on her instrument panel brings Boss to a halt. Alone on her spaceship in a remote quadrant, she drops below light speed and listens. Hearing a blip like that makes her heart pound. It means a faint energy signature from an unknown source, somewhere nearby, most likely a ship. Boss specializes in abandoned ships. She dives them for salvage. But this is like nothing she's ever seen, probably because she knows it can't be there. All of her knowledge of history, physics, and space wrecks says it's impossible. But if it's what she thinks, it could hold the key to a tremendous technological advance, one that no one in the universe should have. Called Page-Turning Space Adventure by Publishers Weekly, Diving into the Wreck by Christine Catherine Rush is classic science fiction at its most gripping. Find all 7 novels in the award-winning diving series at divingintotherwreck.com.
Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. Much appreciated, much appreciated. Now let's dive back into the fracking universe of Battlestar Galactica. See what I did there, Stabby? I used frack again. What the frack, yo? So speaking of, does anybody know why they made up that curse word? Because it inspired every other sci-fi author who thinks they have to use frack now too.
Well, what was the original network? ABC?
ABC was in the 1970s. It was ABC, and then on the reboot, it was it Sci-Fi?
Yeah, you can't get dropping F-bombs on network TV.
Or CFI.
Yeah, it was the censors, but they still wanted it to sound a lot more military than saying, "Oh gosh, darn it."
It's the same reason that they used Mandarin in Firefly. It was to bypass the censors. Because they're like, oh, it's Mandarin. No, how many people speak Mandarin? About 1 billion people.
Yeah. Quite a few, but none of them that care about what the network censors care about. So
Yeah.
that's why, and the sound of just linguistically, the sound of frack has that same punch to it. It's got that same guttural feel to it, and so when they're
Back in the
acting and
cave.
they're using that, you're getting the right kind of feeling across that you couldn't. They really did think through the linguistics of it as to why you would use that as your replacement, and the times that they use it and the reasons they do.
And it rhymes well with pack when you're doing the KFC deal.
Exactly, the frack pack.
I forgot about that. What was that? I don't eat at KFC. I'm sorry. I know. I
I don't
prefer
remember
real
what was in
home
it.
cooking. So was
I'm looking it up.
Was that a thing in the
Chicken
70s
breast
when this
and-
was out, or was this newer?
It was the new one.
Yeah, it was for the recent one. I don't
Okay.
remember what all went in it, but they had some deals with a couple of different places that you saw
All right, I
franchising
was
and
doing what I love to do the best and doing research. So the word frack was first used in season 1, episode 1 of 1978, starring Richard Hatch. It was originally spelled frack with the CK, but the C was ultimately dropped in order to better resemble the expletive it was meant to replace. The creation of the word was neither intentional nor scripted. It was created on the spot by the first episode's director to help the cast channel their frustrations at not being able to swear in 1978.
Oh. Well, the more you know.
fascinating.
And knowing is half the battle. What's the other half, Nick?
Violence.
Extreme fracking violence. That's right. Okay.
You know, honestly, I'm actually kind of surprised that made it past the censors, because it's so
At that point, yeah.
obviously a replacement for fuck. You know,
It's like frick, like when little kids are like, "Oh, what the frick?" Like my stepson does. He says that all the time. What the frick? I'm like, I know what you meant to say. Dude, you're not fooling anybody. I was 13 once too. Just use the
although
actual word.
as I recall, Looney Tunes is allowed to say frick.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Okay, guys, hold on.
You got to unmute, Stabby.
He was unmuted, so I was just talking through his. So in 1978, it wasn't actually meant to replace the F-bomb. It was roughly used for the word shit, rats, or darn. It wasn't becoming a variant of the F-bomb.
Wait, darn wouldn't get
until
past the censor?
It's just lame.
Yeah, it
Well,
didn't
no, I
take
agree.
over the F-bomb
lame as shit.
until
That's lame as
the
frack.
later series. It's when it became the F-bomb. So it was a replacement for shit.
I just think it's funny. It's the F pack. That makes me giggle.
All right. So we've talked about the two series. We're going to start with, while I throw some of the images that I found across the screen for your viewing pleasure at home, we're going to talk a little bit about the change to the Cylon origin story, and everyone can sort of weigh in. I haven't watched all of the original, so I didn't catch the change. But we can, since you guys mentioned that as something worth discussing, while I show these pictures, you can discuss. And I believe, Jenna, it was your idea, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, in the original ones, the Cylons were created by a lizard alien race, I believe.
Mhm.
And there had been a 1,000-year war going on, so it had been a long thing happening before then that's where the two origin stories kind of start to come together, is when we have our big kickoff with Baltar betraying everybody. And that happened again in different ways, but it did happen in both the original and in the reboot. And that was the big attack on the colonies, and left us with the Battlestar Galactica being, the last major ship holding the line while everybody fled. In the new one, it gets into the origin story of, well, humans created Cylons, and then Cylons became fully sentient, and then now they wanted to be their own people, and they thought that human beings were stupid, which they probably have a point. And so it's that whole, it's that cyclical thing of, when you create them and they get smart enough, then they get rid of you, and then they become you, and then you start this cycle all over again. And they talk about that a lot, that this cycle has happened before, it's going to happen again, and it's creating this thing that ends up destroying you, which ties a lot into AI and some of our fears around, what will the robots become and we've seen that in all sorts of science fiction forever. I mean, that's iRobot. That's at the laws of robotics from Asimov is those same kinds of things of when you make something that's sentient, at what point does it decide that you are unnecessary?
Okay.
And
Anybody
that's
else
kind
have
of the
anything?
two different stories.
Does anyone have anything else to weigh in? Or did she cover it pretty well?
Just getting back to the original series, like she said, it was very different in the original series. Humans didn't make the Cylons; they were created by these lizard-like aliens. And in one of the first episodes, Boxy being Apollo's adopted son's like, "What's the origin of the Cylons?" Actually, that might have even been in the last part of the 3-part pilot. Anyway, and he said. He said, "Oh yeah, once upon a time, the Cylons were these lizard-like aliens who created these robots, and then the robots turned on them, and now the Cylons are the robots." And so they kind of kept that idea with the reboot. But then there was always some question for me because the Imperious leader always looked a bit more biological than the regular Cylons. So I was always like, is that one of the original Cylons?
I think he's wearing their skin.
Or is this a machine meant to look like one of those? So now to take this and throw even more, to make it even more convoluted, if you go to the Richard Hatch novels, which he did in the late 90s and early 2000s, it turns out the reason Cylons were machines is because they had a shortage of them as they were pursuing the Galactica. And so there actually were some cybernetic lizard guys in the Cylon suits, which they discovered in, throughout the course of this novel. So it is kind of interesting how there's this progression and how there's, they never quite nailed down exactly what was what. In fact, in one shot with the Imperious leader, he actually literally had a lizard crawling on him. So, what was the relationship there? Was that the pet? Was the lizard the actual Cylon? I mean, who knows? But it was kind of cool how they kept going back to that. Whereas in the reboot, they just jettisoned the entirety of that origin.
Okay. Here's a picture of a model of an actual original Cylon look, which is a lot more boxy than I'll put it on side by side with the original with Kate Sackhoff at a premiere, but you can see the different look. Now, some of that's just technology allowed them to do more.
I don't know. I'm kind of I kind of prefer the originals, to be honest with you. The CGI ones are cool. They look tough. They look like they could just really tear you to pieces. But the originals look more like stormtroopers, and I always like that. So,
okay. Anybody else want to weigh in about the Cylon origin story before I move on?
I didn't care that much about they changing it.
Okay. There was the other change that they did, which I'm throwing up on the screen now if you're watching at home, dear listener, is they changed how the Vipers looked just a little bit. It definitely looks more realistic and less boxy in the newer version, but the other one, the original, does have a kind of classy look to it that the gritty take on it doesn't. So did you guys have a preference? I mean, sometimes when new technology allows them to make things better, and sometimes it was just better the way it was. So what do you guys think about the way the Colonial Viper was reimagined?
The V2 I like better because it has wings, because it's a
atmospheric fighter as well.
Yeah, so like it can go into Atmo, which doesn't make sense if you don't have wings, some sort of gliding, aerospace type stuff. So, but I like the OG Viper too because it was like, well, this thing's just for space, with the little rocket flares on the side to keep it maneuverable. But I don't know, they have a similar design and they updated it, which is kind of cool, and made it so it can be, different environments or whatnot. But
I liked how they had two versions. You know,
Yeah.
they had the really advanced looking ones that you see in the very beginning, and then a lot of those got destroyed because they're all linked together. And so they had to go back to the originals, which looked more like the old, you know, the original series Vipers, modified a little bit. So I don't know. I thought it was cool. It worked for me.
I actually
Well,
like.
and it's a great moment in the show when he goes down and he says, "I seem to recall that I have an entire deck full of vipers,"
Mm-hmm.
and they're pulling down the all of the ropes and everything else so that they can make these things go. So it was a really fun punch to say, "Oh yes, here's we have exactly what we need." And I love that I love that the Battlestar Galactica looks old. The thing looks like it has been through the war that it's been through because it was supposed to be retired. And so it's not this shiny, bright kind of ship. This is a ship that has been it's been through some stuff. And I really loved that aesthetic about it. It felt gritty. It felt like it had seen action. And through the entire new seasons, you just watch this poor ship that they are holding it together with baling wire and duct tape and some bubble gum and a lot of prayer. Because every time they get into another fight, you're losing pieces of the ship, and there's no place to get any more pieces. You've got whatever ingenuity gives you, and if it doesn't get you all the way to Earth, you're screwed. So
Yeah,
it
there's
was
no
a
mission
really
control.
fun aspect.
There's no mission control giving you like 3D printer, you know, models to rebuild parts and stuff. So
So
yeah, I like that it'd been through the muck.
I did like how they explained why they had to go backwards in tech, because the Cylons were able to track their tech because of either virus or just whatever. So you were able to make it timeless, because if you throw up there like, oh, he's got the latest phone technology and it's a flip phone, well, 20 years from now, when it's like embedded in their palm or whatever, like that's not going to age well, right? But if you say, well, they had to go old school because now you've just instantly made whatever you do timeless, which I really liked. Speaking of one of the changes, what do you think of the, since we've talked about the damage to the ship, what do you think about the way they did that? This was literally supposed to be a museum ship. Like it was in the process, if you remember in the beginning, of being converted to like, you know, the Nautilus or whatever coast you're on. You know, there's literally floating retired World War II battleships that are museums. And that was the idea they went with, sort of like Battleship, the movie did. Of course, obviously that came after. That museum trope that I think started with BSG.
So I thought it was cool.
Time to hit up TV tropes and look up the one, break out the museum piece. That's what it's actually called.
I thought it was fine that they did that. What I didn't particularly appreciate was changing the look of the Galactica so it looked ergonomic.
Okay.
You know, you compare that to the original ship. The original ship looks, well, frankly, they could have pulled it out of Star Wars, and they had some of the same effects artists involved with creating the ships. But the look of the thing was so very ergonomic compared to the original, and I just didn't see why a spaceship needed to be like that.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry for changing the subject on you. Just had to get that out there.
That's what this show's all about, man.
So, okay, so you didn't like the way they look. I actually liked both versions of the ship, so I didn't really have a problem with it. But I mean, like, I'm totally game to look at spaceship ass pictures. Like, I'm there every day and twice on Sunday. So, I liked all the things, and I would put models of all of them in my house if I had the money. Unfortunately, like mortgages, like we said, they like to get paid. I don't know what that's about, but they like it. But what did you think about Jana? And then we'll go to you next, Matthew. What did you think about the museum ship trope that I first discovered through BSG? And whenever anyone else does it, they're like, "Oh, you're doing the BSG." Like that's how it's colloquially referred to by people I know. All 12 of you.
I liked it. It worked for me. It's kind of like it goes back to older tropes where it's, you know, the old crusty detective on the verge of retirement, and then he gets pulled back into this. So it's not even a trope that's just about the museum piece or about BSG. We see this all the time. It's the thing that nobody thinks is worth anything anymore. And so they're going to retire, they're going to this, that, and the other, and yet it's the thing that gets pulled through and has to save you. And like Matthew says, it's a very well-worn trope, but it's still one that works for us. And the difference between trope and trite is when you don't do the trope well, when you don't put a twist on it, when you go back to the thing that's just okay, this is what absolutely everybody does. And I think they put enough of their own twist on it, because you also got the Adama was being retired. And so you've got him being the old museum piece as well, and then stepping up to say, no, that's not going to happen. So I like it because it's all of that trope, that old thing that becomes new and then is valuable, because they needed what he knew, they needed what Battlestar represented, and it was very, very cool. And just a sideline thing, there's a scene where everybody's fleeing. And if you watch really closely, there's an Easter egg in there that the Firefly ship Serenity is part of the fleet. So,
Really?
there's,
No way.
there's a
Really?
random Easter egg, and you can see it. You have to freeze the screen, and then you see this teeny little Serenity as one of the many ships that's fleeing Caprica.
Nice.
Didn't Serenity actually show up in a couple places?
I think so. I think it showed up in several others, but that's the one that I always remember is the Serenity beeping along as everybody else is fleeing.
I think they also showed it flying out, when in Rosalind's office on Caprica, looking out the window, you kind of see it flying off in the distance as well.
Oh,
Did they ever explain it?
No,
it's just awesome. That's why it's an Easter egg.
Okay. I don't know. It's a little personal for me. My actual platoon sergeant, the guy who taught me the things that kept me alive when I deployed to Iraq, was had been a Nam veteran. He got out, said, this army life ain't for me. And he hits that age all of us hit where he's like, holy crap, I'd be retired now and collecting a paycheck if I'd stayed in. So he went back into the Guard, did 30 years in the Guard, and is like, okay, I'm finally able to retire. In his 60s, and the Army said, Sergeant, we're not done with you yet. And they sent him to Iraq with me twice. So like I see the value of some of those old skills that everyone, kind of forgets about, because in the age where everything was technology based, crap stopped working in the middle of a sandstorm. But his old style skills, they worked every time. Iron sights all the way. So like I think just the reality of the value of some of those older, more get your hands dirty kind of skills, that has value, I think. So does anybody else have an opinion on the museum trope bit?
Yeah, we're just gonna skip over Under Siege, that cinematic classic with a really crappy martial artist. I mean, that's the first trope I've ever seen. It'd be like me going down to downtown San Diego and stealing the Midway.
I used to be a member of the Battlestar Galactica forum on the Sci-Fi Channel website, and that's a metaphor people came up with. The USS Yorktown flees a nuking of New York City.
Nice.
All right, so first, Stabby found the frack pack, so we're gonna throw that up on the screen. Solo people. So it includes. It doesn't say what was in the food, but you got some chicken with your BSG.
Some chicken.
Now
a year's worth of KFC.
And one, it doesn't say what the food is though. That's the important part.
Yeah, chicken.
You got chicken, but anyway. So we found the frack pack, the advertisement for it, and then I am going to show it. Give me a second. Nick found one of the.
They never specify when they tell you get a year's worth of it. For all you know, it's a year's worth of thighs.
Oh,
there we are. Yep.
There's the
And
Serenity.
that is that is the Serenity.
And I know we see it again in space because there's a shot I've seen there several times. I just can't find it. But yeah, Easter eggs. Get our
And
nerd
this
on
is-
all together.
This is one of the pieces as it was prescribed or portrayed being in the museum, which I kind of like. It's got that worn out vibe. I really liked one of the things they did well was they gave all of the different fighter squadrons like their own little culture, which I think worked, which made the military feel lived in addition to just everything being sort of worn out. One of the other things they changed that the Jenna you talked about in the pre-show while we were waiting for Stabby to finish episode whatever was that they changed the religion. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, the first one was very, very heavily influenced by LDS theology, because Larson, one of the showrunners and writers, was an active member, and there's some really, and I can say this because I am LDS. We have some fun, really weird theology, and that's okay. And so they picked some of the strangest stuff and then added a lot of sci-fi on top of it. So this was Kolob, this was the search for Earth, this was the 13th colony, the 12 colonies representing the 12 tribes of Israel, and Earth being the 13th, all of that kind of thing. In the reboot, they keep some of that. You still have the colonies, you still have the search for Earth and that kind of thing. But then, and even going to Kolob, the home of the gods, but then they overlay it really strongly with Greek mythology. And so you end up, they go to the various temples of some of those Greek names. And that made a lot of sense because we had things like Apollo as a call sign, and some of that was already coming through. But the religion is really important to them. I mean, the president works with, oh, no, I can't remember her name, but she has a
Aurora or
religious
something.
advisor. Yeah. She got a religious advisor, and a lot of that, how they're going to find Earth, the religion and that search for the divine is just as important as anything else in them being able to find where they're going. And so it's a very, like Nick was saying, you still have that balance between the religious aspect, the military aspect, and the political aspect, which you do see again in a lot of classic stories. Is that triangle is at the heart of it, and it's always a struggle between those things, and when do they work together, and when do they tear your culture down? And even the Cylons bring that up.
300's a good example of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Cylons are continually looking for, what does it mean to be a creator? What is the quest for God? What is God? And they talk about that a lot. So the Cylons are figuring out, what is their religious bent? What is their relationship to their creators? And do they become a god when they can create others? Because there's whole subplots on, can the Cylons bear children once we get Cylons who look human? And so there's all these other aspects, and this one really brings in that whole, we do have human appearing Cylons. So who's with us and who's against us? Who knows that they're a Cylon? Who doesn't? What can Cylons become? What do they evolve into? Lots of interesting questions, and I wish they had actually seen a lot more of those through, because the writing gets kind of weird around season 2.5 through 3, and then they kind of wrap things up because they realize they're not going to get another season. And so there are questions that I don't think we ever got really great answers for, even though they were great questions.
There was a deleted scene where they talked about the 13th Lord of Kobol was the jealous god. And I was this on the forum, someone brought up the plot that the idea they had that the Cylon god was the 13th Lord of Kobol. But
that would have been fascinating.
We ended up getting the final 5 nonsense, which, I mean, I watched it to the end, but it started getting kind of dumb there.
Did anybody pick up the graphic novels that were made?
No.
It seems to be based off the OG series. So I wonder if a lot of those questions were answered there, because I know they answered a lot of questions in like the Serenity comics that I had.
I don't know.
So I wonder if they covered some of that.
To me, it felt like they wrapped it up in the sense that human or Cylon, you still ended up on Earth and merged into one culture and one people, and then split off again. And in the very last scene, we're seeing how robots and artificial intelligence is reemerging in modern day Earth. So I don't know. To me, it seems like it was wrapped up pretty well. It just wasn't really super well defined.
Yeah, they kept going to that. It has happened before. It will happen again.
Yeah.
And that was fun. I liked the cycles with it and stuff. There were just a few things that I'm like, but I want more about this. And you're doing the soap opera relationship thing that I don't care about. Go back to the space battles and the what's going on with these other things, and stop punching each other.
Oh boy, the quadrangle of doom. That's what they called it on
good
the forums.
gravy.
Or the polygon.
The multiple-sided relationship of doom that...
I mean, the only functional relationship on that show involves a human who's not the sharpest knife in the drawer and a robot. Hilo and Athena. Everyone else is a Maury Povich show.
Yeah, it's...
So I don't know. I think some of the emotional stuff of the later series was overdone, but I think as a product of the shows of its time, it took itself very seriously, which the original series I didn't feel like did. But I was able to forgive a lot because hello, Vipers, you know.
Hmm.
It was a great equalizer for me. I wanted to fly one. I wanted the helmet. I wanted the outfit. I wanted it all. So you know, you could.
Hey, we got a Viper for our daughter. It's a stuffed Viper toy. And when she was born, she had 2 stuffed toys immediately, and 3. She had the Millennium Falcon, the Starship Enterprise, and the Viper, and they were all these stuffed toys that we found off of ThinkGeek. May it rest in peace. And she still has those.
Too soon. Too soon.
Too soon. I know it hurts.
Train up a child in the way she should go, and when she is old, she will not depart from it.
It's true. It's true.
I actually would put the Colonial Viper right beside the X-wing for me. The Millennium Falcon is okay, but the X-wing was where it was at for me. The Y-wing was okay, but the Viper and the X-wing are it for me in my heart of hearts. And I used to have one of those hearts. I mean,
sweet.
Space jets, man.
Yeah, it's cool. I like how they reimagined fighter combat with some of the turns the way they did them. Instead of trying to make it like basically dogfights in space from World War II, they started getting creative with the physics. I wonder how much of that was the tropes of the time evolving and people saying, wait a minute, that's not how that would work. And how much of that's just technology was better and allowed them to do more.
I think it was both.
Mm-hmm. Some of it is that they actually hired somebody to as an advisor. There's the word I'm looking for. As an advisor on the physics of the show. And there's a whole thing that he writes about the Adama maneuver, which happens at the beginning of season 2. And when they came up with the Adama maneuver, which was jumping into the atmosphere and launching the Vipers at the same time, and the physicist came back and he said, this utterly won't work. Here are all the reasons this is a terrible idea, but it would be so cool. You absolutely must do this because I want to see it.
Oh, yeah, it was.
So it is. It's one of the best. You know, there's those moments in space battles you get in the Wrath of Khan when the Enterprise rises up and you know that Khan is now screwed. The Adama maneuver. There are certain moments that you go, these are so quintessential to the shows. And the Adama maneuver is it, even though the physics of it are wretched. But yeah, their advisor was there for a lot of those space battles and things to make it so the physics were more realistic, so we could do more. But he says, yeah, there were occasional times where the rule of cool trumped everything else because it's like, nope, I must see this. So you just you do that thing, even though it's a really bad idea from a physics point of view. But
well,
so cool.
When physics doesn't work,
so you can science it later.
Yeah, when physics doesn't work, hand wavium for the win.
Yeah.
Always hand waving.
You know, it's also worth mentioning that one of the reasons I think they switched to a more physics-based movement of the Vipers is because we had actually seen that before in Babylon 5. Prior to Babylon 5, everything was very, Star Wars, non-physics in space, whatever. And then Babylon 5, they actually brought in some science advisors, and they actually brought in, what's his face? Science fiction writer, super famous one. Anyway, so they brought in all these people to kind of rein in JMS and say, let's try to make this as realistic as possible. So we'd seen this in science fiction at this point. And then Battlestar Galactica came along, and they knew that existed. And I think they felt like they had to up their game because of it.
That's a great point.
We were talking in the side chat because sometimes we do that when we're not talking. We'll mute ourselves, dear listener, and we have our own little side chat. And I was mentioning that there's a lot of examples whenever you get a maneuver in a series that's named after a person, it's generally one of the coolest things around. So Halo had the Cole protocol, which was, don't let the aliens find you. So death before dishonor, essentially in space with bombs. And then BSG had the Adama maneuver. We won't talk about the Star Wars one that broke the franchise.
But it's so cool though.
Maneuver.
It's beautiful.
If it didn't break every other piece of the lore from like all 100 billion of the books, the movies, because if you could do that, nothing else was necessary, and all those people died for nothing. And since this was in the past, they knew that.
I love how in Star Wars they walked it back in the next next part of the trilogy. They're like, that was a 1 in a million shot that was ever going to work. And I'm like, see, they've been looking at the fan boards.
I can
Yep.
defend it. I can defend it. I'm not going to do it right now, but I can defend that.
They did that for some of
It's
the
that whole
getting off track.
sequel trilogy is not working.
So you know what we need to do? We need to have another one of our Star Wars episodes where we defend that. We can actually make that a standalone episode.
I'm gonna spend 45 minutes talking shit about the Hodor maneuver.
All right, but we're not here for that. We're here for some Battlestar Galactica. So
I don't have anything bad to say about that.
One of the other controversies that may or may not have happened was when they made Starbuck a woman. So let me first say that if you've listened to this episode more than 4 of ours, you'll know I actually defend that as an example where you can regender or change the demographics of a character in a way that it works without being pandering or checking a box, because her relationship with Zach Adama, where she messed up as the trainer of him as her student, she was messing with her student. That's something that happens in the military, and she passed.
Stay away from the trainees. Gosh darn it!
It ruined more careers than you can ever count. I can't tell you how many of those co-ed places careers were ruined because you couldn't.
Goddamn, drill sergeant.
I'd say keep your zipper up, but they're buttons, not zippers. But so
it's true.
It was done, and so because she felt guilt over passing him when he wasn't ready, because he didn't have the family gene, but he had the family legacy to uphold, that when he died, now suddenly her connection to the Adama family makes sense in a way. It just felt cocky, and it was just bro club kind of frat boy stuff in the first iteration of it. Not that it was bad, but this made it deeper and richer for me. So I think it's an example of how it's done right. Apparently, I'm not the only one who has that opinion, but there are plenty of people who didn't like it. And Janet, you were telling us about some of these message boards where fans were going a little bit nuts.
Oh yeah, when it came out that Starbuck was going to be a woman, there are a lot of boards that lit up with "you can't do that, that's not," and a lot of it was the assumption that, first of all, they would change Starbuck as a character, that it wouldn't be the cocky pilot anymore, the cigar smoking, hard drinking, womanizing, all these things that they loved about Starbuck, and that if it was, a woman was incapable of being that or of playing that role. And they did it really, really well. And I think she sold it. It was convincing. That character, the Starbuck as a character, no matter what gender you put to it, remained. And then you were able to, like say, use the gender roles in order to create other stories that would not have worked as well in keeping him as a guy.
I bought into it right away because I've seen plenty of hard charging, hard drinking female soldiers and Marines and airmen. I mean, some of them even dipped. I was like, God damn.
Yeah. And that's just, there were a lot of people though that didn't, that there was a lot of controversy over making that change. And, was it only pandering to the woke community, or, why were you doing that? And I think that they did it, and it was really powerful. And like I say, it made for a lot of opportunities in storytelling that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So I loved it.
I think a lot of those people that were complaining were probably misogynistic people that never done anything manly a day in their life, but they think they have to uphold the sanctity of manhood. I'm like, dude, come on, man. I've seen female soldiers do stuff most dudes wouldn't do.
The woke community back in 2003.
Yeah, that's pretty much that. It's like, oh, because she's a woman. And I'm like, nah, I mean, I've seen them do some crazy shit. All right. So they get a pass. Starbuck's a woman. Get over it. I even defended it. I got dogpiled a few times. Oh, how do you say that? And I'm like, and I've never even seen the goddamn show. But I'm like, hey, listen, we're at a point in time now where we all eat a lot of protein. There's a lot of strong freaking chicks out there. Don't send me the hate mail because I said chick. It's not misogynistic. I'm a dinosaur, okay? Kiss my ass.
You're going to be getting it from everybody. The wokeitarians for saying chicks and the dude bros for defending girls.
Yeah, the dude bros that never did a day in combat. I'm like, dude, I got like multiple tours. You can also kiss my whole ass. My pedigree is unmatched as far as combat shit.
Both of my tours, when I was a security commander, I worked with mostly with the same convoy commander. So they were in charge of the convoy until the shooting started. And then in theory, I could relieve them as security commander. Generally, when they outrank you, it's a bad idea unless they mess up. But in theory, I had that authority, and I worked most with a female soldier that I would have followed into hell if she asked, just because I trusted her that much. And there are plenty of female soldiers that I didn't trust, but there were as many men that I didn't trust.
Dude, I watched a 130-pound girl soaking wet with body armor on pull a 240-pound man out of a burning Humvee. Now,
Nice.
she was extremely exhausted, and we had to hook her up with IVs. But Jesus Christ, that's a feat, you know. And she did it. So, like, don't talk to me about like, oh, well, because she's a girl, she can't fucking do the job. No, get fracked. All right. I've seen it. I'm like, I don't really appreciate that they passed Ranger School and I didn't. That kind of that little thorn in my craw there. But I also got hurt. So, female Starbuck, totally legit, totally freaking awesome. Male Starbuck,
I just looked at
totally
it this
legit,
way.
totally awesome.
True. I looked at it this way. They were changing everything else, so who cares?
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can't be so focused on the past. Like, I'm a purist on certain stuff, but it doesn't mean that there's no room for change. It wasn't pandering with the gender swap.
Not at all.
I didn't feel like it was
not
at
at
all.
all.
And I've seen
I think it
pandering.
added more to the story.
I did
few
too.
episodes that I've watched. I was like, okay, I get it. You know, but it also gives you an opportunity for comedic relief when she's being a little too aggressive. Like, what month is it?
What day of the month? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
just
no.
it. Like, we've all seen it when it has been done pandering, and it was definitely just to check the box. Okay, we did our diversity, people. Why aren't you happy? It didn't feel like that with the way they wrote Starbuck. I felt like they kept it
No.
true.
It felt organic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You know,
it did.
it was like it was
did.
organic to the story. So that's what I appreciate about that. And so when it's done well, it's done really well. And Katie Sackhoff is a perfect example. She's a very strong woman. You know, I've loved her in every sci-fi thing she's ever done. Like Bo-Katan. Oh my god.
Yeah, loving her in Mandalorian.
You know, she's a female Mandarin. She's the queen. Like, how badass are you? Like, you can't get any more badass. And
Do you
she's
need
the
a moment
nicest
in your
person I've
bunk?
ever got. I'll be in my bunk.
all right. So
I got to get the cap my mom made though.
So yeah, so we've got we're about an hour and 10 minutes in. We could keep going clearly because we're passionate. So if there are any subtopics of the Battlestar Galactica franchise you want us to go into, we can have this star-studded cast back. I don't know if you've noticed, dear listener, but we're starting to invite a lot of the same guests back. Why? Because it make it easy on us. Because
They're
get
freaking fun.
they're fun and they talk, and I don't have to like
Cracking fun.
yeah. I
Cracking
don't know. You're
We're
married,
cracking
so
fun.
maybe not with Jana though. Her husband might object. Your wife might object. It gets ugly.
I got dibs on Darren.
Okay,
Ooh la
well,
la.
it's the new army, people. We don't judge.
Hey,
But with that being said, did you guys have any clothing?
I got some clothing
Clothing.
options
Yeah,
for your
clothing.
portrait, JR, that I talked about in the side chat. That's happening.
All
Send me
right.
pictures where I'm going to use my imagination.
All right. Do you have any
Wow.
final thoughts? There we go. I can't mess final up. I don't think. Anybody?
I have a thought. Okay, so we've talked about where Battlestar Galactica started and where it's been, and they're working on another one. And there's
No, stop.
occasionally news. It's like they send up a flare. It's like, hey, we're doing this. It's going to happen. It feels like 25 years ago when they were doing the same thing. But there is something
Close.
going on with Peacock, and they're going to be doing something, and they haven't really said exactly what it's going to be, because I'm like, Battlestar Galactica, the reboot at least, is a very self-contained story. In 4 years, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there isn't really any place to go from the end, because now at that point in time, we're talking about thousands of years on Earth, reprogressing through the Bronze Age to the modern age, and that's the story. So, but at the same time, they're saying we're gonna tie this into that series. I'm like, how are you gonna do this? Is this going to be our future now, where AI has taken over and it turns into a race back to Caprica? What I mean, where
I could
are we
write
going
that
with
story,
this?
Darren.
What
I could
the-
write that story. I'm writing it right now in my head. It's
But
so
anyway,
easy.
So it's not done. It's not done. There's more coming.
They should hire me.
Let's give
Or me.
Stabby- Let's give Stabby.
Actually, you could hire anybody in this panel right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Stabby, go ahead.
Said before we do
another one of these panels. Let's give Stabby enough time to get caught up.
Maybe you
That sounds good.
We can do that.
2.5
I feel
weeks.
like I'm just sitting here staring at you guys going, yeah.
Oh, you're doing great.
Now, the other
You're
thing,
doing great. You're faking it well,
Fake-
madam. You're faking
Fake
it
it
well.
till you make it, baby.
the
All
other
right,
final
so-
thought that I've got here is, if you like the original series, find the Richard Hatch books. And it's really hard to find the originals anymore, and they don't have them on digital, so you might have to do a little bit of hunting on the internet. FYI, there's a Facebook group that happens to have some files. I'll say no more beyond that.
Yeah, we'll get canned.
But it is definitely worth checking those out. It's also worth checking out the original series comic books that have come out.
Through Dynamite?
In recent years. Those are
Yeah,
fun too.
those
So
are
if you
some
like
good
the original,
books.
they're definitely they definitely got the feel of the show right when they were doing those. And also, like I said, Richard Hatch, Apollo from the original series, was involved with the creation of those novels. So he is deceased now. That was kind of his final thing to do with. Yeah. So check him out. It's worth it. And that's all I've got.
All right.
So the Richard Hatch books, I got one quick question. Where in the BSG timeline do those books take place?
About 20 years after the end of the original series.
Okay, cool.
So, Matthew, any final thoughts?
Well, if I may be a total self-promoting hoe, I actually wrote some fanfic when I was in college. The first time I wrote fanfics, I was middle school, that explained where Crashdown came from.
Okay.
These references coming from the Triton, so it's about the destruction of the Triton and how the survivors made their way to the Galactica. So it's called, The Death of the Triton on fanfiction.net. And I was just checking my reviews before the show started, and someone said, send this to Sam Witwer. So I just tweeted at him. Let's see if he reads it. He played Crashdown.
God, he's played he played Darth Maul, he played Galen Merrick.
All right, so
God,
Matthew, if you could get Nick, hold on for a second. Matthew, if you could get me that link to the fan fiction.
It's in the chat at the very beginning, but I can send it again anyway.
Yeah, I will. I got it. I will link. Is Exiles of the Wind?
No, that's someone. That's
No.
another fanfic someone wrote that kind of makes fun of the Cylon plan. The
All right,
Death
I got
of the
it.
Triton is mine.
It is now gonna. It will be linked in the show notes, dear listener, and you guys can give this a read after you listen to this episode.
Because who doesn't love fanfic?
Right. All right. And finally, last but not least, we got you, Miss Jana S. Brown. Got any final thoughts?
The final thoughts is that, unlike Firefly, getting all the way through Battlestar Galactica will not make Stabby nearly as sad.
So say we all. So say we all.
So say we all.
All right. So, Nick, any final thoughts before I let these fine people tell us what they're writing and where we can find them on the interwebs?
I don't know where you can find them, but I can tell you where you can find me. No, I'm just
No, you're supposed to tell me if you have any final thoughts.
Oh, final thought. Oh.
Spoilers, darling.
Spoilers, darling. Yes.
If he had the Viper helmet, he wouldn't be forgetting as much. I'm just saying, Stabby. It's good for
yeah, I think with the Pharaoh helmet, it would probably contain all that in there because of its shape and design.
It's science.
It's got the vents. It's just going to go in there and just percolate.
Yeah, science, man. It's science.
No,
You can
final
write that
thoughts.
off
I like Battlestar Galactica as a genre. I like it as a show. I've only seen a handful of things from the OG and, well, all the series, really. I haven't seen the miniseries yet. So I'm kind of excited to track that down.
Watch that.
And the one from the 80s where we have the Adama beard. So,
you don't want to watch that.
I'm a glutton for punishment, Darren. You don't.
Starbucks
chains
Return.
and whips and
Starbucks
Adama
Return.
beards.
There's one episode worth watching. The Return of Starbuck. That's it. The rest of it never happened.
Okay, I'm looking at
Hold on. We have to inform Darren because I don't think he's been on with me before.
No, he hasn't.
So I'm a completionist. I have to watch all of it. I'm the same way with books. You can't give me one book and then not expect me to go out and buy all the rest of the books in the series. I have to watch them all.
I compare it to a stick of dynamite. Once you light the fuse, you have to give it room.
Yeah. So
Well,
I have to watch the crappy stuff too.
if you want to subject yourself to that, feel free. I'm not going to hold it against you, but
But it is painful.
It is not good.
It's very painful.
That's why bourbon is invented.
I still watch Firefly knowing I wasn't going to get any
Oh,
answers.
I need a mulligan. When I talked about like how I got introduced to Battlestar Galactica, it wasn't on TV. It was part of the backlot tour at Universal Studios.
Oh,
And I remember the trolley going through, and you go through a little mock battle, with Vipers and stuff, and it was the 80s, so they did the best they could. And then you go into like this main room with like the head Cylon and a bunch of Cylons everywhere, and they're just all like, I was like, they scared the shit out of me. So this whole episode has unlocked triggers from my early youth.
you need therapy now.
For
Yeah.
everybody out there in podcast land, this guy can go to Universal Studios and just continuously redo the backlot tour and never go anywhere else.
She's
in
not
the
lying.
park.
I will write it in a loop because I love that so much. I try to get a different tour guide, but because they're all different.
I don't know, that one guy.
If you-
Universal, you owe me $25.
So if you like the Battlestar Galactica universe, if you like that feel, I will say that Terry Mixon and Jay and Cheney's The Last Hunter series definitely gives me some BSG vibes with the museum ship. That could just be that trope alone, but it definitely.
Oh, and their covers are amazing.
Yeah, hit that note for me. So I'll link that in the show notes so you can find it if you're interested. They didn't sponsor the show or anything. I just like the series. There are probably
That's a good
others.
series.
Yeah, there's probably others that do the museum ship trope, and if you can list them in the comments and reply to us, I'm definitely interested. So if you've got some, let us know, because I'll read it, we'll pimp it. I love that stuff. I really do like making the old new again. But I was a history major, so I'm a glutton for a punishment. So
And sadness.
The good thing about being a history major, though, is everyone's dead, so no one can disagree with you. Well, no one that can prove you wrong anyway. I mean, other historians will disagree with you, but they don't count.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They'll
They don't
absolutely
count. They
disagree
want
with you.
With that being said, I'm going to go, top to bottom, left to right, because I can read a board, people. Matthew W. Quinn, what are you writing right now, and how can listeners find you?
I'm theoretically writing the third book in my Long War series, The Walking Worm, The Thing in the Woods, and Land Incursion were the first two. I say theoretically because I spend most of my writing time either doing Substack or going to flea markets and conventions.
Flea markets are a valid way to spend your time. I'm just saying.
And it's selling older books and not writing any new ones. That's the problem. And it's NaNoWriMo. I should be doing something.
Fair. All right, Mr. Darren Drader, how can listeners find you, and what are you writing right now?
Okay, what I'm writing right now, and you're hearing it here first. I haven't announced this anywhere else, including Facebook. I'm doing an original RPG, an original system, tied to a near future military adventure setting called Shadowhawks. And this, I'll just say I'm about 20,000 words into it right now. I'm hoping to double that, maybe get to about 50,000. It is kind of a cross between a modern RPG and an old school in terms of architecture. So it kind of is in a very weird spot as far as that goes. But we will hopefully be kickstarting that. That depends a lot upon other people. And so that's what I'm working on right now. As far as where you can find me, you can go to DriveThruRPG and go to Darren Drader Designs, and there's some 5e monsters up there. There's some 5e converted to space opera up there. There's some unpopulated maps. Whatever the heck, I mean, that's what I've got up there right now, and there's some adventures too. But I priced them all relatively cheap, and some of them use AI art. So if don't hang me because of it, but it's the only way to do it, and do it in a reasonably cost-effective way. You can also find me twice a month on Cybernation Uncensored, running Fallout Pacific Northwest. So that's me.
Out freaking standing. And you are a very naughty man, sir, because now I've got to air this sooner so we can actually get the spoiler. You did that on purpose, didn't you?
What's this?
I said, now I've got to move this episode up sooner because you gave us an exclusive. You did this on purpose.
I did a little bit, didn't I?
It's okay. It's okay.
I don't plan on going out there and blabbing right now. I'm keeping a lot of it close to the cuff, as far as exactly what all this is. But it's in the works.
Okay, and finally, last but not least, we have Miss Jenna S. Brown, who sometimes cosplays as Jenna Ray.
Absolutely. Let's see. What I'm working on right now is the same thing I was last time, where I have a fantasy trilogy. I must finish book 3 because my mother has demanded it, and we all know that we should do what our mamas want us to do. So I am trundling along on that. That's got to be done before the end of the year. And then with 3 Ravens, there's a call out for military sci-fi, and I have had an idea sprout. So I will be jumping in and writing a short story for their anthology too. And you can find
I
me
will be
at
a military consultant if you need one.
I will be happy to do that. You can find me at www.opalkingdompress.com, and all of the various versions of me live there.
Good luck on that anthology. I hear the guy that's picking is a real jerk.
Well,
Jared,
he's okay. You just got to give him booze.
Exactly. You just have to bat your eyelashes at him.
Yeah, I've been told that I'm not 20 anymore, so I've got to drink quality liquor now instead of the rotten guts.
Don't worry, Jared. I got you handled. I got a list.
I'm going to embark on the bourbon tasting. I'm told Glenlivet is on the list and a few others.
Yes, Macallan 18.
Yeah, so we will see. I'll be building a bar apparently in my COVID free time with all the booze I'll be testing for science.
Oh, I'm going to fly out and help you. It's going to be so fun.
Outstanding. It's science, people. All right, and you know what? I didn't ask you this in a long time. Nick, what are you working on right now?
Oh my gourd. What the frack?
That's a good question.
It's up on the board.
Oh, okay. So, because I too am a glutton for punishment, like you, good sir, and a lot of our other guests that like to burn the candle at both ends in the middle and just set the whole goddamn thing on fire. I'm drawing 3 comic books currently. I'm drawing Corvid and Sparrow, which is our female superhero duo that are. I'll give you the explanation when we get closer to pimping that. Quickwire, which is the first speedster in the Apogee universe. We don't have a speedster yet. So that's going to be fun. I've loved drawing the Flash when I was a kid, so I get to just move forward with that. And Corvid and Sparrow, Quickwire, and completing Phantom Hawk issue 2. It's half drawn, so now I got to match the style of the previous artist and go into chameleon mode.
And you're working on issue 4 of Kid in a Comic.
And I'm working on issue 4 of Kid in a Comic, but that's a comic strip, so I can eat up so much of my time. So that's what I'm working on right now. We're getting ready to build the Big Bad event, which is going to bring all of our heroes together to face their first world-threatening situation. So that's what we got going on. Always check me out at ApogeeComics.com, at Apogee Comics on the other socials, and there you go. There you have it. Busy.
Because he doesn't need to sleep, I actually sent him a script for a comic too, just because, Stabby
which
can
is
keep
good
feeding
too.
him
Which,
with it.
it's good,
So-
and I have to set that into the production schedule. You son of a bitch, because I really liked it.
I did it just to
So-
see if I could because I was waiting for an edit.
Well, congratulations, JR. Guess what? You made the cut. You're a comic book writer now.
Woohoo!
Sacrilege, you bastard.
He asked me what I wanted for pay, and I said I'd take booze. Apparently, my publisher didn't like that answer. The publisher being, my parents.
Until I offered the publisher booze, and they were like, "Okay, cool, run it."
Well, my
Weird.
dad was in the Navy, so that probably would actually work.
I have a case of some really good rum that I'll send him.
Outstanding. All right. And before I let you go, dear listener, dear viewer, I'd like to remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books, so do your part. But speaking of reviews, you can also review more than just the books. When you buy the movies, you can review them on websites wherever you purchase them. You can start a website to review what you like to read, watch, or games you like to play. I hear Mr. Darren would love it if you reviewed his games over at Drive-Thru RPG,
Absolutely.
Amazon if you buy it there, or anywhere else fine games are sold. He wants to hear what you think. Unless it's now negative things, and then ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, send that to Jared Hanley.
And
No.
if you wanna check
Madam
out my
Stabby
stuff-
Stab. She gets
if
all
you
the
want-
hate.
And if you want to check out my stuff on Amazon.com and review it, good or bad, Matthew W. Quinn, that would be much appreciated.
All right. And you can find us on the interweb on our link tree, linktr.ee/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things, the bit shoots, the rumbles, the Twitters, the email, the real one, people, the business only one where we do proper gentlemanly things, the Facebook group, the Facebook page. We link to Madam Stabby Stab, where all hate mail and shenanigans can happen. She likes it. She will make you cry, though. Fair warning. Don't sue us when you need therapy later. That's not our fault. We warned you. With that being said, we have a website. Yes.
JR.
Yes.
They're releasing the Christmas holiday flavors at Coffee Brand Coffee.
I was about to get to that, but you just made me want coffee now.
Peppermint mocha.
I'm only on my 5th cup. I don't know. Well, you know what? Who needs a liver? I'll drink more. You can support the show by buying some of our affiliate link coffee at Coffee Brand Coffee. There's a link in the show notes. Use the code PODCASTGRUNTS for 10% off, people, and we get a little bit of a kickback. So you buy good coffee, you support an American company, if that matters to you, and you support us, it's a win-win. Or you can support us more directly on anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where for as little as 99 cents a month, you can help keep the lights on. These episodes aren't free to produce. This shenanigans takes time and effort to wrangle. And some of the programs we use in the back end cost a little bit of money. So every little bit helps. Or you could support us more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section of this for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until Java pours out of their eyeballs. And it will only be the best Coffee Brand Coffee for them, people. See what I did? We call that a callback because I know what I'm doing. Ish.
Just ordered 2 more bags.
Heavy lifting. All right. With that being said, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host I am J.R. Handley. This is not at J.R. Handley. And this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time where we'll indulge our love of nerd comics, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And since we're recording during the Nano season, where I've challenged myself to finish this novel that was due to the publisher so long ago, I will be mainlining caffeine. So next episode will be even more wacky because I'm going to see if 6 cups of coffee will do it. All right.
Why not 7?
We just ordered 2 more bags of coffee.
This is the
And a
way,
cup.
people. Or
This is the way.
so say we all.
So say we
So
all.
say we all.
So say we all.